This is a story about Napoleon Bonaparte. Yes, that Napoleon, emperor, commander, revolutionary, a man of great triumphs. But tonight, we won't follow him into battle. No, tonight, we'll sit beside him when the world around him is finally quiet. Our story begins on a freezing evening in November 1812. Somewhere along the road from Moscow, near a crumbling Russian village barely marked on any map. The air is still, heavy, not with sound, but with silence. You can hear the snow. Yes, snow has a sound. It whispers when it falls. It hushes the world when it lands. It softens everything. And in that snow, in that white silence, a small campfire flickers. It's low, not for warmth, but for hiding. The flames lick dry twigs, the smoke curling upward, then disappearing into the black sky. And beside it sits Napoleon Bonaparte. His coat is thick, fur-lined, but his shoulders are hunched. His boots, scuffed and frozen at the seams, rest motionless in the snow. His gloved hands, so active, so quick with maps and ink and orders, now lie quiet in his lap. He stares into the fire, eyes flicking only slightly with each crackle. All around him, his once mighty army sleeps, or tries to. Some huddle near makeshift fires, others burrow under cloaks, limbs curled tight. Some simply lie still, as if the snow itself is tucking them in forever. Napoleon doesn't speak. Not tonight. There is no one left to impress. No generals to persuade. No crowds to command. Only cold and memory. He thinks about time, about how many watches he ordered, how, in the heart of his empire, he demanded that every city's bells chime in perfect unison, not just for efficiency, but for order, control. He once said, "The strong man is the one who is able to intercept at will the communication between the senses and the mind." But tonight, his senses overpower him. The quiet shuffle of boots on crusted snow in the distance, the burn of cold air in his lungs, the scent of wet leather and ash, and most of all, the sound of time passing. Without him, he's only 43, still young, still powerful. But tonight, he feels something unfamiliar. Smallness, the same smallness a child feels when the wind howls through shutters and the world becomes larger than they ever imagined. Behind him, one of his guards coughs in his sleep. The cannons, the smoke, the thrill. A horse shifts, its hooves crunching softly against frozen earth. The heat, the discovery of ancient things, things that had ruled the sands long before he ever thought to crown himself emperor. But Napoleon doesn't turn. He had imagined it like a chessboard, clean, strategic, winnable. He keeps watching the fire, and in its soft, rhythmic dance, he remembers. He remembers Toulon, his first victory. He remembers Egypt, the golden light on the pyramids. He remembers. He remembers losing her. And then he remembers Moscow. The minute hand trembles in the cold. Or what was left of it. The Russian campaign was meant to be his masterpiece. But the board kept shifting. The cities burned before he arrived. The people vanished into forests. The winter came early. Strong jaw, sharp cheekbones, eyes dark and distant. And now his masterpiece is unraveling. Napoleon reaches into his coat and pulls out a watch. One of his favorites, gold casing, slightly dented. He flips it open and watches it tick. Time still obeys him. At least this timepiece does. But nothing else does. Not anymore. A log cracks. The fire flares briefly. The light catches the edge of his profile. The fire shrinks. Napoleon lowers his head. His eyelids flutter. This man, who once redrew the map of Europe as though it were a chalkboard, now can't even find a dry path home. But strangely, he is calm. In this silence, in this snow, he finds something he hadn't felt in years. Just stars, not power, not hunger, not pride. Trying to understand how something so vast could become so still, but peace. For just a moment, he is not Napoleon the Great, not the Emperor, not the legend, not the symbol. He is simply a man beside a fire, trying to stay warm, trying to stay awake. The stars blink above, no longer French, no longer Russian, always watching, never choosing sides. The snow thickens. Even emperors must sleep. Even giants grow weary. And as his body leans slightly forward, cradled in wool and frost, his mind continues walking through memories, through silence, through everything he thought he knew. The dream doesn't begin with battle. It begins with a hallway. A long one. Stone floors. High ceilings. The faint smell of ink and candle wax. This is Brienne, the military school. Napoleon is a boy again. 11 years old, Corsican accent thick in his mouth. Books too big for his arms. He walks alone, always alone. He was teased there. They mocked his voice, his name, his ambition. But he read everything. Caesar, Tacitus. When you breathe, when you are not trying to conquer, but simply to be. Tonight, as you rest, you are beside that fire, wrapped in wool, listening to the soft breath of sleeping soldiers, the quiet creak of a frozen saddle, the brittle whisper of snowflakes landing on pine needles. Time slows here, even for the great, even for you. Even Plutarch's lives, while other boys slept. While they snored, he planned, not rebellions, but futures, his own future, where maps bent to will. The rest were lost in mud, in river crossings, in hurried escapes. A soldier, not far, just enough to feel his legs again. Each step crunches softly, not the crisp snap of dry snow, but the muted press of slush and ash. Because this isn't new snow, it's trampled. It lights his path, a heather road, covered in wheel tracks, hoof prints, and the faded ghosts of decisions past. He exhales slowly. A cloud of breath rises and disappears. Just like everything else, tired, like the men, young, barely more than a boy. But for something deeper, a rhythm beneath thought, the rhythm of change, of endings. Rest, his voice is low, roughened by the cold. The boy hesitates, then nods and sinks back into sleep. Napoleon stares at him a moment longer. That boy may not survive the march, but for now he dreams, and sometimes that is enough. He doesn't miss them. Tonight, humility feels warmer than velvet. This is the gray in between, and that is where peace lives. Sacks of flour, cracked salt barrels, one frozen ham. A violin case, oddly enough. He opens it. No violin, just hay. A rat scurries out. He closes it again. Even music has abandoned them. In a few hours, he'll make a decision. One that will lead to retreat, to loss, to exile, but not yet. For now, there is only the frost, but now he sees it differently. History is a river. It flows, with or without you. And if you try to dam it, it finds another path. Still, he walks upstream, because he is Napoleon. And he does not stop. Not even here, not even now. And the steady beat of a heart still trying to outpace time, where no one laughed at how he said, strategy, no warmth, just an easing of shadows. Napoleon watches it, not with wonder, but with patience. He used to waft sunrises. In Italy, he'd rise early to walk alone while soldiers still slept in tents, and the Alps turned gold. He once called it the hour when empires feels different. But this sunrise feels different, colder, distant, not a beginning, not an end, just another mile in retreat. Another pause before the next hard step. In the dream, the hallway stretches farther. Each step echoes, frost-laced. Perhaps that's the better emperor, but enough to shift snow from the tops of tents, enough to send whispers through brittle grass. Napoleon closes his coat tighter. Black trunks, limbs heavy with ice. And in his mind, they become soldiers, unmoving, silent, unbreakable. He's always seen the world as formation, geometry, discipline, even nature, to him, marches in lines. A fox darts from the woods. Red blur against white. It pauses, just yards from Napoleon, breathing visible. Its eyes meet his. Neither flinches. Two survivors, frozen in recognition. Then the fox vanishes into brush. Silent, perfect. He turns away, but not without thought. Soft-soled shoes against old stone. Somewhere, far ahead, a door glows with light. But he never reaches it. Not yet. The past doesn't need doors, only footsteps. Back at the campfire, the sky is turning navy. Still star-strewn, still cold. But with a hint of dawn, like rose petals pressed between pages. Napoleon opens his eyes. He hadn't meant to sleep. Sleep is vulnerability. Sleep is for soldiers, not emperors. But this snow, this silence, it melts all pride. He straightens, brushes frost from his collar. The fire is embers now. Faint warmth, but enough. In the dim orange glow, he writes something in his notebook. Few know he kept one. Even fewer have read it. Thoughts, measurements. A sketch of a coat he designed himself. A note about Polish cavalry, and once, a line about how he feared losing his legacy more than his life. He closes the book, tucks it into the breast of his coat, close to the heart. Time again. He checks the watch. 6:18 a.m. somewhere far west. In Paris, people are stirring. Chimneys coughing, smoke, bread rising, babies crying, horses clopping on morning streets. Life continues, unaware that history is sleeping in the snow. His aide approaches quietly, boots barely crunching. Majesty. The voice is gentle. Napoleon nods. No need for words. He stands. Even tired, he rises like stone from soil. Straight, sharp, enduring. They'll march again soon. Another 100 miles. Another dozen broken wagons. Another night in frozen wind. But this hour, this 1 hour of hush and memory and fire, he'll carry it, tucked deeper than the metals, and so will you. You, too, carry moments like this, moments no one else sees. When you paused, Napoleon walks a short circle, hands behind his back. Thinking, always thinking. He's no longer dreaming. But he isn't fully awake either. The sky turns pale. Not bright, just less dark. Dawn over the Russian plain is a quiet thing. No birds yet. He turns toward the line of trees. He once said, "Imagination governs the world." What governed the fox? Not imagination. Instinct, timing, grace. He remembers the tailors in Paris. He had 11 uniforms made for the Russian campaign, velvet-lined, braided in gold, only to remain. Someone stirs nearby. He begins walking again. He pauses by a wagon, half covered in canvas, its wheels buried deep. Inside, what's left of provisions. But the silence remains. And in that silence, Napoleon listens. Not for danger, not for messengers. He used to believe history was a horse meant to be ridden fast and controlled. The sun crests, thin and white, more suggestion than warmth, but enough. Later that day, as the cold sun hangs just above the horizon, Napoleon gathers his coat tighter again, not for warmth, but for ritual. His walk returns him to the center of Camp 5. It can be called a camp, a scatter of fires, a cluster of men. Ragged edges where armies once stood proud in tight formations. Now, nothing is tight. Everything is loose, fraying even time. He used to count time in cannon blasts, in cavalry charges, in how quickly a messenger could reach the front line, by how quickly frost climbs the edges of a tent. Now, it's measured by how long his boots stay dry. No salutes, no stiffened spines. Just men trying to get through the day. He sits again. A Corsican lullaby. Napoleon recognizes it. His mother used to sing it once, when the candles burned low and the shutters rattled in the wind. This time, near a group of soldiers, cooking what little remains. The pot bubbles faintly, mostly snow, perhaps a scrap of carrot. They pretend not to see him. He likes that. One of them hums, low and slow, forgetting fear, draws a simple line under the words, and closes the book, forgetting pain, forgetting the faces of those left behind. He closes his eyes briefly, listening, not to command, but to remember. So much of war is forgetting, and still he moves. But tonight, memory feels gentler than ambition. He opens his journal again. The pages are stiff from cold. He writes, "I have built empires on roads such as these. Now they carry me away from them. The men, the fires, the slow, steady collapse of a dream." He pauses. No matter. He'd find the angle, undermanned. He'd use speed. Surprise. In the past, he feared sleep, not because of dreams, but because in sleep he could not plan, and planning was his power. He could take pieces of nothing and shape them into strategy, outnumbered. He played war like a composer plays piano, and often he won. But this is not war. This is winter, and winter does not negotiate. The most powerful thing you can do is pause, and memory, He understands something that never fit inside his maps. The wind rises again. It hums through cracks in trees. It shifts the tents, tugs at cloaks. Napoleon watches it move through the camp like a ghost, inspecting what it left behind. He stands once more. His knees ache, not from age, but from everything. He walks toward a ridge, a small one, just a slope above the camp. He climbs it slowly, leaving his guards behind. At the top, he turns and sees it all. But he doesn't look away, because to be a leader is to face the fire and the ashes. Above him, the moon begins to rise. Thin, silver, unconcerned. He speaks aloud to no one in particular. Even the moon retreats. The snow begins again, soft, relentless. It clings to his shoulders, his hat, his breath. He closes his eyes, let it fall. He is not the same man who entered Moscow. That man wore confidence like armor. This man wears silence like wool, and it fits. In that moment, with the world reduced to breath, snow, not all victories are loud. Not all endings are failures. And sometimes, and breathe, just breathe. Night returns with little fanfare. It simply deepens, like ink soaking deeper into old parchment. The fires glow lower now. Most are quiet. Some have gone out, and with each flicker that fades, the stars above seem to shine brighter bold against the velvet dark. Napoleon remains on the ridge, watching. A soldier approaches slowly, as if not to disturb the wind. He carries a letter. Napoleon nods once, takes it, breaks the wax seal. Not political, not military, simple, unmarked. Another coughs. A kettle whistles once, then falls silent. These are not sounds of war. They're lullabies of retreat. But in the memory, her voice lingers like perfume. Soft, familiar. He whispers her name. Of survival. Thin. A letting go of weight he didn't know he carried. Of expectations. Of portraits. Of thunderous speeches and endless campaigns. Delicate. Endless. It blankets everything. The cannons, the carriages, the curled bodies of sleeping men. Even the pain of endurance. Canvas flapping gently in the wind. Inside, it is dim, lit by one oil lamp. The wick dances slowly, casting long shadows. He does not sleep. Not yet. He listens. To the snow, to the wind, to the quiet breath of history exhaling. And he whispers to no one in particular. It's from his stepdaughter, Hortense. She writes of the weather, of music. There's the table where he studied maps in Austerlitz, still scratched from ink, knives, and compass points. There's the cot he never really slept in just rested on, eyes half open, mind always calculating. Of her son learning to walk, Napoleon smiles faintly, an expression more subtle than most would notice, but it's there. He folds the letter carefully, places it in his coat, right beside the notebook, close to the heart. It's from Paris. The camp stretches below, less like an army now, more like a village caught in a long, cold dream. He begins his descent from the ridge, boots sliding slightly on the slope. He does not rush. He reaches his tent. He removes his coat carefully, as though it might break. He sits on a crate, brushes snow from his cuffs, takes off his boots with a soft grunt, then silence. The air tastes of wax and cloth and a trace of metal. He breathes out, the sigh of a man not defeated, but human. There are roses, thousands of them. The gardener had warned him. They wouldn't grow this late in the year. But she insisted, and they bloomed, even in November. This tent, though small, holds memory. Tonight he lies back, not fully, just enough. The canvas above flutters gently, and beyond its stars he breathes in. Somewhere nearby, an officer mutters in his sleep. Napoleon lets his eyes close for a moment, and then a memory. He's standing in the gardens of Malmaison, is laughing. She's not here now. Outside, the snow falls again, and in that soft hush, as the lamp dims, Napoleon, emperor, general, father, dreamer, lets himself feel it, not defeat, not regret, but release, just silence. So this is how kings fade. Outside the tent, the wind hushes, not gone, but gentler, like a hand resting on your shoulder. Instead of pushing you forward, the camp has gone still. Even the horses no longer stamp. Somewhere, an icicle cracks, but doesn't fall. It just sways, like a breath held too long. Inside, Napoleon watches the canvas above him, the shadows rippling faintly. His fingers rest on the wool blanket. It's coarse, worn, but warm. The golden blaze of a world that feels like Mars. And the Sphinx. He stood before it once, so still, so ancient, and whispered to it, asking if it remembered Alexander. He did not expect an answer, but in the wind he imagined one. Not the linens of a palace, but tonight he prefers the honest weight of it. He closes his eyes again, and memory returns. He is back in Egypt. The sun, the sand. He remembers sleeping under stars that night. He is in a ballroom, Vienna, maybe, or Paris. Invisible clocks telling stories in silence. He breathes in once more and lets it go. A chandelier like a frozen fountain above. Music playing, spinning in silk, he in uniform, but smiling. A glass of wine he won't finish, a moment he won't forget, just slightly. And beneath layers of wool and memory, he finally begins to sleep. Not as an emperor, but as a man who has walked far, carried much, and is ready to set it down for just one night. Not for enemies, not for frostbite's creep, but for that same quiet he felt in Egypt. Not fully asleep, but adrift, half thoughts, half dreams. He sees himself younger at Toulon, ordering batteries into place. He remembers the thrill of command, the certainty, and he smiles, just faintly. He doesn't miss it. He simply remembers. He believed every minute lost was a victory given away. Now, he sees it differently. Time isn't a battle. It's a companion. Sometimes it walks beside you. Sometimes it pulls ahead. Sometimes it waits in the snow for you to catch your breath. The silence that holds truth no words can reach. His hands fold across his chest, fingers intertwined. But it's there, a silent metronome, marking time, not as a soldier, but as a man. Thousands of them scattered across the desert sky, like embers flung from a god's fire. He asked himself then if all great men were alone before they became statues. Back in the tent, his breath rises and fades. He murmurs, barely louder than the wind. So many hours spent conquering. But it is these still ones that linger. He thinks of time again, how obsessed he once was. He had his staff synchronize their watches to the second. He drifts again. Then another shift, and then the music fades. The dream thins. Outside, the stars turn overhead. Tonight, there are no orders, no proclamations, only the cold, the quiet, and the peace of not needing to be anything but present. Outside the tent, the snowfall thickens, but without wind, it feels almost kind. Flakes settle on shoulders, on saddles, on forgotten crates and half-buried wheels. Ink black. Still, now, in this dream, he believes it again, and it soothes him, because the waves don't demand anything. They just continue. A kind of hush. Not even the forest breaks. Even the owls stay quiet. Even the wind holds its breath, as if he always knew his life would be too full to ever feel light. They don't hurry. They just arrive, softly, always softly. He doesn't know it yet, but he is back in Corsica, a boy again, barefoot on a cliffside. Looking down at the sea, the waves pulse against the rocks. Endlessly, he looks at the tent, at the soft glow within, and when he opens them, the night has grown even quieter. No trumpets, no orders, no marches. You followed the footsteps, heard the wind. felt the stillness gather, and now you may rest with it. He knows the emperor is inside, but tonight he feels something different, not reverence. You are warm, you are still, not fear, just humanity. And he watches them, not as a strategist, but as a child. The night grows deeper, each breath rising like smoke from the animal's nostrils, each step crunching through ice and ambition. Behind him troops follow. He remembers this moment well, crossing the Great St. Bernard Pass, 1800, heading to Marengo, to victory. Inside, Napoleon dreams. He used to believe the ocean was alive, that it spoke a language of rhythms and tides, not abruptly. Sleep has wrapped around him like snow on pine branches, not sudden, but complete, but like turning a page with cold fingers. Now he is older, on horseback, riding through a mountain pass. Snow here too, but not Russian. These are the Alps, crisper, sharper, carving their names into the sky. He crouches down, reaches toward a tide pool, sees his reflection ripple. His face young, but his eyes carry weight already. The dream shifts. His horse moves steady. But in this dream, he's not thinking of tactics. He's listening to the creak of saddles, the beat of hooves, the quiet music of risk. He loved risk once, not chaos, but risk calculated to the atom. Because in that edge between collapse and triumph, he felt most alive. Now he wonders if he misunderstood. Maybe peace isn't what follows war. Maybe peace is what war covers up. Back in the tent, his face softens. His breath is deeper now. The guard outside shifts his weight, but makes no sound. He tightens his scarf. Snow dusts his shoulders. He closes his eyes for just a moment. Just the gentle exhale of history, letting go. And you, dear listener, you are part of this, too. Because in this cold night, where even emperors yield to silence, you are safe. Hours pass, not marked by clocks, but by the rhythm of flickering firelight and the hush of snowfall. One flame dies, then another, and still the snow falls. Layer upon layer, covering footsteps, cooling cannon barrels, erasing the day. The camp is still, but not empty. It holds thousands of breaths, thousands of dreams, and one quiet man sleeping in a tent. Inside, Napoleon stirs, not fully awake, not fully dreaming. He's floating between worlds, the weight of memory and the weightlessness of sleep. He dreams of numbers, simple ones, dates, years, battle counts, casualty reports. They swirl and settle. But one remains. 1796, his first Italian campaign. when he was only 26, the boy general. He remembers the hunger, the ragged troops, the wild, electric hope in their eyes. They believed in him before he fully believed in himself. And so, he walked ahead, spoke louder, stood taller, because that's what they needed. And over time, it became real. That year, he learned that leadership was not power, but presence. A hand on the shoulder, a look that said, "Keep going," even when he didn't feel certain. Especially then, back in the tent, he exhales. One long, steady breath, and shifts. The cot creaks just faintly. The blanket rustles, and the snow whispers outside. Elsewhere in the camp, a few men are awake. One sharpens a blade, not for war, but to carve kindling from frozen branches. Another writes a letter, the ink thick in the cold. He doesn't know if it will ever reach home. But still, he writes, because writing is a kind of prayer. A prayer to memory, to connection, to something warmer than this night. Napoleon dreams again, this time of books. He always loved them more than most knew. He carried a portable library on his campaigns. Dozens of titles, neatly packed. Philosophy, history, Plutarch, Cicero. Even when cannonballs fell, he found time to read. Not to escape, but to stay grounded. Because men like him stood on thought as much as on strategy. In his dream, he's back in Egypt, reading by candlelight. The tent smells of parchment, wax, and desert wind. Outside, others sleep. But he reads, page after page, until the candle gutters, and the moon takes over. He whispers Latin phrases to himself, not to remember, but to feel anchored to something older, wiser, something that existed before he did and would last long after. And now, in snowy Russia, in the quiet of retreat, those old lines return, softly, as if the snow is speaking them back to him. Fortuna sica est. Fortune is blind. He smiles in his sleep, not bitterly, just knowingly, because now he understands it. He doesn't chase glory anymore. He walks with it, beside it, letting it go when needed, like a companion who's grown tired. The fire outside the tent crackles one last time, then dies down, and with it, the night grows deeper still. But you, gentle listener, you are not cold. You are here, wrapped in stillness and stories and the gentle presence of one man's quiet night. Let the snow keep falling. Let the stars keep turning. And let yourself rest, softly, safely, here. Far above, the stars blink quietly. They do not move fast, not like cannon fire, not like messengers, but they endure. Their stillness is a comfort. Not everything must rush. Not everything must win. Back on earth, Napoleon sleeps on, still wrapped in dreams, not of battles, but of places, rooms, gardens, the study at Tuileries Palace, the scent of ink and old wood, a globe turning slowly beneath his hand. He touches Italy, then Egypt, then Russia. It spins gently, like time itself. He closes his eyes in the dream and listens, not for victory, but for silence. In this moment, he is not commanding anyone. He is simply remembering. A servant once brought him tea at dawn, after a night without sleep. He'd been writing, drafting laws, not orders. The civil code, his true monument. I want it to outlive me, he said. And in this dream, he whispers the same, because cannonballs rust, but words endure. And order, real order, is built not with armies, but with pages. He sees those pages now, neatly stacked, carefully inked, thousands of them, each one a promise to those who'd never meet him. And for the first time, perhaps, he feels proud, not of conquest, but of structure, of the quiet discipline of law. In the real world, his breath is steady. The cot is still, and the frost has crept higher on the tent flaps. But inside, warmth holds. From the wool, from the silence, and from the still glow of a life examined. Outside, the soldiers sleep. Many will not remember this night, but their bodies memorize the cold, the ache, the peace between footsteps. Even in dreams, their shoulders remain squared. Even in silence, they carry each other. One man tucks a worn glove beneath his head. Another clutches a wooden cross on a string. Neither speaks, but their sleep is deep, the kind earned by endurance. A soft breeze brushes across the snow. Not cruel, just curious, curls past tents, slips between horses, lifts a corner of canvas just slightly, and then retreats. Napoleon shifts just a little, as if hearing the wind's gentle sigh. He doesn't wake, but his dream changes. Now he is in exile. A vision not yet lived, but present nonetheless. An island, waves crashing, gulls crying above cliffs. He is alone, but not afraid. There is peace here too, a rougher one, but peace. He walks the shoreline, hands behind his back, boots crunching on pebble and shell. No guards, no diplomats, just tide. He picks up a stone, turns it over in his hand. It is smooth, gray, cool, but not falling either, just resting. The dream fades, like mist from sea cliffs, and he returns to stillness, to breath, to warmth, to the soft, private quiet that comes only when all titles have been set down. Napoleon sleeps, and so do you, together, not as emperor and audience, but as dreamers, both surrounded by snow and night and gentle memory. This is a night that teaches nothing but stillness. And stillness, dear listener, is everything. The night is long, but not lonely. It cradles all who sleep beneath its soldier and sovereign alike. Before epaulets, before thrones, before maps carved in borders and blood, it whispers to the trees, to the stars, to your heartbeat. And everything listens, even time. In his sleep, Napoleon drifts again now to simpler days. One arm over his chest, the other by his side. Each flake a silent thought spiraling from sky to earth, to beauty, to legacy, to what survives war. You too are beneath that sky, wrapped in this same moment, blanketed by the same peace. Just a stripe of silver along black. The world holds its breath a moment longer. Lowly this, the slow inhale of snow-dampened air, the warm cradle of a blanket. No need to move, no need to rise. Here, in this silence, you are more than rested. You are understood, the hush of memory. Before wheels turn, before orders rise, before ambition stirs. The camp remains still, the tent silent, his face guarded, not proud, not strategic. Paintings watching, he moves through them like a ghost among thoughts, just still. He sits at a desk, hands ink-stained, face serious beyond his years, reading Plutarch again. The lives of great men, Caesar, Alexander, Scipio. They fascinate him not for conquest, but for solitude. How they carried entire worlds in their thoughts. Some are whispered in the hours between. Just walking, it is night. The streets are empty. Lamps flicker. His boots echo on the cobblestones of Rue de Rivoli, in tents, in dreams, in breath. He wanted to understand them, and maybe to become one. But the boy in the dream does not know the future yet. Only the snow outside the classroom window and the hush of pages turning. Back in the tent, he stirs slightly. Outside, snow continues to fall. Golden light. He breathes in as if to smell the sun. Not all stories are told in battles. A page turns. He is back in Paris, not in power, not in exile. He passes the Louvre, dark, silent. He pauses, looks up, smiles. He remembers. He remembers he once wished to fill it not with spoils, but with knowledge. He collected art not as trophies, but as testaments. Inside the Louvre, the halls are empty. Statues frozen mid-step. In front of one canvas, he stops. A quiet landscape. Rolling wheat fields. The dream fades. The fields dissolve, the halls darken, and the world returns. Back in Russia, the sky begins to pale. This is the hour when everything sleeps deepest, but not yet. And you, dear listener, floating with him in thought and shadow, you are still safe here, still wrapped in warmth, still drifting. Let yourself stay. The night is long, but not lonely. It cradles all who sleep beneath its soldier and sovereign alike. It whispers to the trees, to the stars, to your heartbeat, and everything listens. Even time, his face guarded, not proud, not strategic, just still. The snow continues to fall. Each flake a silent thought spiraling from sky to earth. Just a stripe of silver along black. Now only this, the slow inhale of snow-dampened air. No need to move, no need to rise. Here, in this silence, you are more than rested. You are understood. The warm cradle of a blanket, the hush of memory. The camp remains still, the tent silent. This is the hour when everything sleeps deepest. The world holding its breath just a moment longer before wheels turn, before orders rise, before ambition stirs. You, too, are beneath that sky, wrapped in this same moment, blanketed by the same peace. In his sleep, Napoleon drifts again, now to simpler days. Before epaulettes, he sits at a desk, hands ink-stained, face serious beyond his years. He's reading Plutarch again, the lives of great men, of Caesar, Alexander, Scipio. They fascinate him, not for conquest, but for solitude. How they carried entire worlds in their thoughts, just walking. Night, empty streets, flickering lamps. His boots echo on the cobblestones of Rue de Rivoli. He wanted to understand them, and maybe to become one. But the boy in the dream does not know the future yet. Only the snow outside the classroom window, and the hush of pages turning before thrones, before maps carved in borders and blood. He is in school, Brienne, a cold stone building, austere, quiet. Back in the tent, he stirs slightly, one arm over his chest, the other by his side. Not all stories are told in battles. Some are whispered in the hours between. Intense, he remembers. He once wished to fill it not with spoils, but with knowledge. Paintings watching. He moves through them like a ghost among thoughts. In front of one canvas, he stops. A quiet landscape, rolling wheat fields, golden light. He breathes in as if to smell the sun. He collected art not as trophies, but as testaments to beauty, to legacy, to what survives war, in dreams, in breath. A page turns. Now he is back in Paris, not in power, not in exile. He passes the Louvre, dark, silent. He pauses, looks up, smiles. Inside the Louvre, the halls are empty. Statues frozen mid-step. The dream fades. The fields dissolve. The halls darken. The world returns. Back in Russia, the sky begins to pale, but not yet. And you, dear listener, floating with him in thought and shadow, you are still safe here, still wrapped in warmth, still drifting. Let yourself stay. The garden lingers, not vivid, but felt, like the scent of petals on a breeze that's already passed. Napoleon walks a little further. In his dream, he isn't old, but he isn't young either. He's timeless, a version of himself that belongs only here, between sleep and sky. He reaches a stone bench, the kind that warms under sunlight, and hears nothing, not silence, but fullness, not longing, just smiling. And that is enough. The kind of quiet that has depth. A bee wanders past. A leaf flutters once, twice, but today it is cool to the touch. He sits and remembers, and the ground feels firm, the air gentle, and feel the calm settle in your chest. Not battles, letting the sun warm his eyelids. Its presence of stillness. The breeze brushes your face, too, and in that breath he lets go of something unnamed and becomes lighter. Let your hands unclench. Let your breath lengthen. Golden rays stretch like fingers across the folds of fabric. Not speeches, but voices. You are not in war. You are in the calm that history rarely mentions. Fires stirred, bags fastened. A few speak softly. Mostly they nod, but it does not rush in. It waits kindly, allowing one last dream to finish. Laughter, warm hands, just as someone walking the same path, quietly, together. Cool sheets, long dinners by candlelight. Somewhere far off, a fountain flows, and with each sound, his shoulders relaxed just a little more, as do yours. He closes his eyes. He sees Josephine, but she says nothing. She's not angry. He takes another breath. It doesn't hurt. Back in the tent, the sun has begun to glow through the canvas. Dust motes rise and shimmer. A new day has arrived. The soldiers begin to move. One by one, boots pulled on, as if saying, "We made it through the cold." Inside, Napoleon stirs again. His eyes flutter, but they do not open fully. Instead, he turns slightly, as if to face the sun, even through the tent wall. He stands on a hill. No army, no noise. Just grass, rolling far into the distance. In his final dream of the night, birdsong in the distance. A sky that is not threatening, but soft. He takes one step forward, and he whispers to no one, "This is what I wanted. Not glory, not titles, but this, a day that begins without fear, and in this dream, you are beside him. Not as follower, not as subject. You hear the wind move through the grass. There is nothing to carry, nothing to fix, only to be." Napoleon closes his eyes once more, and in this shared silence, you both understand peace isn't absence of conflict. And now you are still, truly, fully. Let your body feel weightless now. The morning will come, as it always does. But for now, there is this, a moment held gently between snow and sunlight. The camp begins to stir, not with alarms, not with horns, just quiet movement, men rubbing frost from lashes, fingers flexing into gloves, a kettle warming over a low fire. Even the horses rise carefully. It is a morning of retreat, but it doesn't feel like defeat, only movement. A slow shift from one page of history to the next. Inside the tent, Napoleon opens his eyes. Only halfway. He doesn't sit up, doesn't call for anyone. He listens. 2 footsteps on frozen ground, to wind against canvas, to the truth he's still here. He takes one deep breath, then another, grounded, still. A soldier waits outside, silent, patient. Eventually, Napoleon speaks. A few quiet words. The soldier nods and walks away. The emperor rises slowly. No ceremony. He washes his face, brushes snow from boots, fastens his coat with hands that remember. He steps outside and blinks into the light. The snow has caught the sunrise. Everything glows soft gold. He says nothing, but everyone notices. Because presence doesn't need volume. A nearby aide offers tea. Napoleon takes it, sips carefully, hands steady, gaze lingering. Watching frost melt on a saddle. Watching a breath turn to mist, then vanish. Not the look of a man counting losses, the look of a man taking stock of what remains, and still he remembers the garden, the river, the poem, held behind his eyes, not forgotten, not spoken of. History will remember numbers, orders, fate, but not this sip of tea in the hand of a man who no longer needs to win everything. This moment is yours, too. You stand beside him. No title, no rank, just stillness, just breath, just understanding. Let it settle over you. The knowing that stillness is strength. Let your fingers loosen. Let your thoughts slow. You do not need to rise yet. Let the snow melt a little longer. Let the day unfold without you. You are safe, held gently in this pause between pages. You are still, and that is enough. The road stretches ahead, long, white, unmarked. It asks no questions. It simply waits. Napoleon walks now. Slowly, his horse is nearby, but he chooses his feet. Boots crunch softly over crusted snow. Each step deliberate, not from pain, but from attention. He notices the breath in morning air, the squeak of frost beneath wool, the caw of distant ravens circling above. Every motion becomes meditation. He knows now empires are fragile, legacies shift like wind, and memory outlives monuments. Still, he walks, because retreat is not surrender. It is a turning, a beginning. He stops at a ridge. Behind him, camp, fading into mist. Ahead, more road endless, quiet, waiting, but also a promise. Time continues. He closes his eyes, and in that pause, the sound of ticking. Hundreds of clocks, synchronized, as he once ordered. Time, not ruled, but felt. He smiles, slightly, and with it, a release, a knot untied, a title set down. Back at the camp, men begin to pack. Tents collapse. Fires go cold. Boots are fastened. But even in haste, there is grace. A sense that this day belongs to no one, and to everyone. Napoleon watches, sees quiet acts, a boot laced by a friend, bread shared, a soft hum drifting in morning air. This is history, too. Not in books, not in statues, but in breath, in kindness, in cold hands, doing small things. He mounts his horse, no orders, no flair, only familiarity. The horse shifts, and he moves with it. The army follows, slow, tired, but not broken. You follow too, not in boots, but in breath. You are not a distant observer. You are part of this stillness. You are part of this truth. Let your body move gently with it. Let your breath slow. Feel the rhythm of hooves imagined in snow. You don't need to understand. You only need to be, to float in the quiet. Snow falls again. Not heavy, just soft, like sleep. Each flake draws you deeper, calmer. Still, you've walked this far, not for facts, but for hush, not for battles, but for what lies between. Even emperors need stillness, even in retreat. There is grace. Now the world fades into white, into breath, into silence, and in that silence, everything. Sleep now. No more roads, no more footsteps, only peace, only you, only stillness. The snow falls thicker now, soft and slow, like closing eyelids. It surrounds everything, gentle and weightless, like silence made visible. like peace, drifting. The army moves forward in rhythm. One long line, many hearts, no words. Each step in time. Napoleon rides among them, neither leading nor lagging, just present, the breath of horses, the crunch of hooves, the mist in cold air. It's all part of one still, breathing moment. He no longer wonders what history will say. They will write and rewrite. But not this man on a snow-covered road, carried only by silence. He looks up. A single sunbeam breaks through the clouds. It touches a distant hill before disappearing again. But it's enough, a flicker of gold, to remind him that warmth still exists, even here. He closes his eyes, not to sleep, to remember, and in that stillness, so do you. You are no longer in Russia, no longer watching. You are inside a breath where sound softens and time slows. Nothing needs fixing. Nothing needs holding. Your shoulders fall, hands open, breath deepens. You float like frost on a branch that bends in grace, not burden. The march fades. The road dissolves. Your own heartbeat, the only rhythm now, slows like a distant drum. Not for war, just for nothing. And in that nothing, peace. The scene lingers, still as a painting, alive only in feeling. Then, quietly, it fades. There's no more story now. Only the stillness you've earned. Let it stay, if you wish, forever. Close your eyes. Let go. You've come far. You need not return. You are not a soldier, not a ruler, not a name in history. You are a sleeper, a dreamer, and now a dream. Let go. Let the snow fall. Let silence speak. Let everything rest, including you. Good night, and softly, sweetly, always. Sleep well.